Hello there. Eksauria again. Yes. So I'm still programming the combat system as usual. Let's just take another step to try and finish this combat system. So right now the system is still working, but I have forgot a little detail about the parry system. So the parry system is intended to basically give an effect on the enemy. So right now it's programmed to always parry. If you have a weaker element, if you have a stronger element, or same level element, one that is not stronger or weaker, it's in the same category of elements. Basically, it does nothing. It just does nothing. So let's just change that feature, shall we? So let's just check how it's working right now, and yes, the features are starting to showing up. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Ah, yes, the bugs appear. Oh no. Why? Why? Oh god. Yes, nah. I know why this is happening. So I have worked in another feature, which is shaders that will make the character basically reading the effects of the elements. So to make the game easier for the artist to develop sprite sheets of our character and to implement different elements, I have developed this shader that shades our attacks, like quick attack, heavy attack, parry, everything that uses the element of our Eksauria, to shade it on its proper color. So let's say fire uses red color, ice uses blue whitish color, the thunder is like a purple color, and earth it's like a greenish, it's like green color. It's not tied to the code yet, but the problem of that it's because I have implemented a visual shader that reads from the combat texture and not movement texture. We have a separate texture for animations, and because I have applying this material on top of our animated sprite, which is the visual aspect of our character, basically because we only have the combat, we only see in combat even if we set the idle animation, which is annoying, which is very annoying. So I'm just gonna confirm that I have saved this visual shader somewhere. So save, where is save? I don't want to save it like this. Scarlet, I have the... I don't want this is useless right now because I'm implementing directly in material, though I want to save this material. I want to save this material not as trees. I want to save it as material, and I want it to save as elements shader. Element shaders. It's a proper name. And now I want to save it inside the Scarlet folder. I believe it's correct. Yes, element shaders. And this element shaders has the visual shader, which is the shader that I have worked. Okay, now I can do this. Bye bye. And we can close this right now. Alright, now you are not gonna do fun things on idle. There you go. Okay. Telework key sucks. Well, Wolfreak, I'm sorry. You suck. Just for this second, okay? Now you are very nice. A nice developer, like we all are. That does look better. The fans have asked what they wanted. Why did I give the fans what they wanted? Why I'm not like the other streamers? Why I'm not asking for donations? Yeah. Yeah, I'm a people pleaser. I should ask for money like any other streamer. If the viewers want me to do something, please donate to our studio. We have Patreon and Ko-Fi and other ways to help our team. So I'm gonna politely ask our marketing goal to share the Patreon and Ko-Fi and give us money links in our chat. And if you want me to do something on stream, if it's legal and if it's not gonna make us ban, just donate us something and I might consider doing what you want. There you go. Links are being shared. So, only likely illegal. No illegal stuff, and no disrespectful stuff, with the Wolfreak exception, of course. Sorry. So, joking. So, as I have fixed the animations, let's just check the Parry feature. Oh, I don't have health potions on my save data. Yeah, from the last stream I have implemented some features. I have been working, as you can see. So it's properly scrolling the other things that we can do with Scarlet. The heavy attack, it's also working. Wait a second. It was supposed to work. Why I can't escape the bugs? Why? Where's my indicator? This arrow. Why are you not showing up? Why are you not showing up? Why Ellen? Why are you not selecting? Oh wait, it's not Ellen. It's Scarlet. Oh, hello there, mates. Welcome back to the stream. So, where I have the arrow selection, it's on combat controller, and I have it down there. So I need to find this get input, yes, down up, and when I press enter I will check if the action is selected, and if the action is selected, action selected true, enemy selector visible equals to true, and the enemy selector should be this arrow, but it's not setting as true. Oh, maybe because of this. Maybe because of this. It was, but it wasn't on the right place. Why you are not doing that? Okay, I am dumb. The problem was in the hierarchy. The combat UI was disabled. Oh well. Now it's not. It's properly working. Let's just check if I have disabled other things like this collider. There you go. There you go. Camera is like this, so the arrow is off, of course, and the enter is off too. Okay, everything is good now. So let's just lock the player. There you go, with this lock, so I can't edit anything more in this. In the node hierarchy, H1D. This is cool to see the dev progress. Thank you. This is why we are streaming. And hello there. So this on the second player Discord. Oh, you are on our Discord. Welcome, welcome. You should say something from time to time, as we are sometimes on our Discord and we like to chat. So you are very welcome. Thank you. We are hoping you will have a great time seeing us developing our game. And so let's just focus on a game, as is our motto of our studio. So let's just go back to our mechanic. So we are working on the Parry system, and if you remember our previous streams that we have working, I don't remember if you have worked on this feature on stream or not, probably not, but how this feature works. So this is a turn-based game, and I can select the action I want to make, and if I select quick attack, heavy attack, I can select what enemy I want to attack. So just like a typical turn-based game, you can call it Final Fantasy inspired, as it was one of the references that we used to create this combat system. But we have a spin, like a different, new thing. So we want our game to not be a copycat of other games. We want our game to stand out with special features. And one of the features that we have that is way different from other games, it's the parry feature. And so the parry feature, it's not turn-based, it's time-based. It's very inspired on the Dark Souls parry, that we have to read the enemy animation and we have to press the parry button on a specific time. Right now that button is set for enter, and let's just briefly attack one enemy, and after I attack one of these three enemies, they are going to start attacking me. So they are going to perform an attack, and when they start attacking, I have a small specified time when I can press the enter button, and if I press the enter button on the right time, our character is going to parry. Now, that button will appear on screen, the prompt for the player to press enter, and that button will be translucent, will have a transparency set. But when that becomes totally opaque, when the enter icon becomes really opaque, when transparency disappears, basically will become it's going to be the time for you to parry the attack. So the difference we can see in here. So this is the parry prompt that you can press. If you press in this state, you will fail the parry. But if you press in this state, the parry will be successful. But that is an incomplete feature, because we want the feature to take in consideration the elements of our weapon, because the elements are on our Eksauria. This is the name of our game and the name of the weapons, of the swords. And it will compare the element to the enemy's element. So let's just try to parry. One successful, two successful, and because I didn't have enough stamina, I have failed the third parry. So it didn't even prompt us to have a parry. So this is working right now. So it's the parry is checking if we have enough stamina to perform the parry, and in our third attack we didn't. So it didn't even show us the prompt. But now there is some other features that we have to implement. First one is to check if our element is the same of our enemies, if it's a weaker element or a stronger element. If it's a weaker element, it's always going to fail. It will show the prompt because we have an extra feature that we are going to implement in later down the road, which is the feature that if we perform a parry with an weaker element, we are going to suffer even more damage in our weapon, because our items are going to have damage, and we have to repair our weapons on blacksmith, but that's down the road. Right now we are going to focus on the parry and stun feature on our enemies. Oh, and I have just noticed that our soundtrack is over. It's just 20 minutes. So let's just start listening to the soundtrack of the Momodora Revier Under the Moonlight. There you go. I'm going to lower a little bit the sound. A little bit less, just not to be too high. So I believe it's okay right now. Oh, hi, Alf Ninja. Welcome. So, getting back to our game. So you can parry, There you go. So right now what we are going to do, we are going to check if we can successfully make a parry. So right now I have the parry code split. Basically, we have a combat controller which controls our combat system. Basically, it will check if it's our turn to select the attack, if it's the enemy the time to attack, and from there we'll pass on the parry to the player controller, which is reading again the player inputs, and in the player controller we'll check if we press enter on the precise timing of our animations to perform the parry. So the calculations are on physics process, of course. If you are experienced in Unity, the physics process is basically the fixed update. And fixed update basically updates the calculations of our code not by frames, by every frame. Every frame is calculated on it's not on ready. Ready stands for the start. What's the equivalent of the update in Godot? I forgot. Anyway, you have the physics process that is way better because it processes the calculations not by frame but by a specific amount of seconds. I know that on Unity the fixed update calculates from like 50,000 milliseconds. I may be mistaken on what I'm saying, or I believe it's nanoseconds. It's a finite number of seconds, and that means the calculations will be way more optimized because you don't need to calculate collisions and other things on that exact frame. It's a way to optimize things and to make the physics more. It's a way to make physics more. What's the perfect term? Basically, not as heavy, intensive on our processor as it should be, and that makes, in the end, for the player to have more frames to see, which is a good thing, having more frames. But right now, so we have our physics process, which is the every loop that we are going to see if our character is in combat, and if it is in combat, we're going to see if we are in backpack open because of the loot system. This is the frame to check. So basically is to see if we have ended the damage animation and pass to idle, and then we have the start to take damage, which is this is activated on the combat controller if an enemy attacks us, and then if we are on the take damage animation, they will check if we can perform a parry or not. So this is the calculations of the amount of frames, and by frames I say animation frames, not frames per second. So this is the animation frames that we can perform a parry. And those frames are set by enemies. So the enemies have a JSON file that we are using to configure, to make the configurations for our game. We can check that. Not only that, game data, save data, and every other configurations are in JSON files, which is awesome for balancing our game. So let's just open the enemy data to check the parry timing. And so let's just take for the imp for an example. So the imp has a parry time from the second to the third frame, which means we can perform a successfully perform a parry if we press our enter button from the second to the third frame. And this is read directly on the combat system, which is passed on to the player controller, and it's read in here by the parry count. So we are going to see if the parry count, the 0 position, is when the successful frame starts, and as we have taken the example of the imp starts on 2. On this in this case the frames are counted by 0, so 0, 1, 2, which means the third frame. Oh, hi there, Fubar. Welcome to our stream. How fast is the animation? Oh, I can answer that question. And I can answer that question directly showing our FPS speed. So right now our FPS speed is on 8. So 8 frames per second right now, because we have I mean, making a bigger sprite is pretty work. Sorry, I can see the interface. Oh yeah, because I have the overlay on stream. Okay, let's just do this, and you can probably check now the speed FPS in here. So yeah, it's 8 frames per second. That's because we haven't made the sprite animation bigger. As you can see, making animation sprites, it's very hard work made by our Pixel Boy. He also streams on this channel, so give us a follow and stay tuned for future streams to see that. But let's just go back to our work. So the animation. So in here we are checking if the parry count is on a successful frame, and if it's not, if it's before we can parry, it will go on it will fail. So parry is pressed, so parry is going to be pressed. The parry input, which is the icon of the enter key, will be disabled, and we are going to remove stamina points because we have parried, so we have performed the action of parry, so we are going to spend some stamina points, and updated the UI, which means going to update the bar. So a parry time window should be 8 for 60. Basically we have 8 frames per second. It's a finite, it's a very precise time window, and you can see it right there. I'm going to show you the timing we have. So the imp right now, I can select the imp, so let's just select an enemy, and I want to select the animation. Let's just open the enemy scene, an animation, there you go. So the enemy has a bunch of sprites. Let's just check the idle. So in the idle we have this much, so but the attacks are what does matter. So let's just select the quick attack, for example. The quick attack has more sprites, as we can see. Let's 3, 6, 9, 10. We have 10 frames, and the speed is a little higher. I know it's not the most optimized thing. I promise you the frames will have, every single frame will have the same speed as it should be, but right now we are adjusting the animation speeds just to make it more pleasant to see in game. So let's just check in game how fast we have to perform a parry. As you can see, we have a split second to press enter in that precise frame, and let's just perform a successful parry. There you go, 2 successful parries back to back. So you have a finite time to perform a parry, and this is vary from enemy to enemy. As I have shown before, we can set the precise frames to perform a parry by enemy. So the imp has from the second to third frame, the white has from the second to third. Is all of them set to third? Yes, they are. But we can change that later on by checking the precise moment when the enemy performs the attack, and by the attack we check when the enemy should touch the player, and then we set the timings of the frames in here on this parry time array. I'm just curious about the approach to use the animation frames as timing controls instead of using delta, for example. Yeah. The thing is, I could do that, but right now I need to study more about the Godot signals in the animations to see that. But right now I'm using the delta to check that, and maybe in the future when I'm optimizing this game I might do that. So thank you for the input. I know how to do that on Unity, but on Godot I need to study more. And on Unreal too. I have some experience setting animation triggers on the animation itself. But right now I am doing this manually on the delta, which was easier to implement. Easier in quotes. It's faster in my mind. So, going back to the parry. So, this is the if condition to check if we perform a successful parry. So, to perform a successful parry in here, I will need to check if our character has a weaker element than our enemy. And how the hell I'm going to do that? I know I have a function that does that, but I believe it's on combat controller. On combat controller, and where is that function? I can use HP potions, SP, detect enemies, set enemies, positions, drop item, element checker. Oh, there you go, element checker. And in this element checker we can see the element weakness and the strong. This will return strong or weak, and I need to give this to the player controller, and in the player controller I'm going to set this and see if we are on a weaker or stronger element to perform this. Now what I'm going to do to pass this value to the player controller? How am I going to do? Custom signal. I could do that. Yes, I could. Yes, I could. Let's just check, for instance, in here. So, in this if-else condition, I'm checking if it's my turn or the enemy's turn. right? Right, so in here I'm checking if our player has haste and isn't their turn, it doesn't have haste, and the enemy size are bigger than 0, which means we have enemies. And if that's the case, then we are checking if the enemy turns it's equals to the size to check if the turn has ended for the enemies, and if the enemy turns has ended, then we give haste to the player. Enemy turn starts with 0, action index to the first one, yes, and a signal to show the battle UI. If not, it means the enemy is going to attack, and is in there that we are going to tell the parent to perform the damage, and the damage, I believe we are sending the damage to the player as well. So the player should have if the element is weaker or stronger, right? So the parent, we have the damage function. So parent, which is the player controller, damage function, there you go. And we have the element modifier. Yes, we already have the element in here, but this element modifier is not set by the weaker or stronger, is set by 0, -1 or 1. That's not very pleasant. So element checker. The element checker it's returning, yes, it's returning weak or strong. Strong, weak, or 1. So it's returning strong, it's returning weak, or is it returning 1? 1 being the neutral thing. The neutral thing, else strong or weak. This is going to get 1, or it's going to get strong or weak. Okay, so the element modifier, I'm going to save this on a specific variable. So let's just create another variable right below the parry count, which means a new variable. This variable is going to be enemy element, and it's going to be equal to nothing. So player enemy element, it's now equals to 0, to nothing. It's an empty string. Now I'm going to update this variable to the variable received in this damage function, the element modifier. So I'm getting this in here. So if the HP of our player is more than 0, which means he's still alive, it's going to save the damage value, play the take damage animation, which triggers the start of our parry function, parry feature. The parry count will be the counter received, which is the timing we can perform parry. So let's just say our enemy element, it's equals to the element modifier that we receive in the damage function. So this should be stronger, strong, weak, or 1. And in here I'm checking if it's strong, weak, or 1. But if the element modifier is below 1 or the SP Parry equals to true. So the element modifier below 1. Okay, maybe this is old code. Maybe this is old code when I'm try to implement this feature. Wait a second. Wait a second. Why I feel I have implemented this before and now I have edited this? Strong, weak, or 1. When I apply the damage to the enemy, so I'll damage the enemy with the element checker inside the enemy, so damage, and in here I'm checking if we are stronger or weaker than the enemy, and in the enemy, when I damage it, I multiply by the element modifier. Oh, we might have found a logic error in here. Oh. That's why the feature wasn't working. I have found a logic error. So this returns strong, this pass strong or weak or 1. Then multiplies it that. Okay. So let's just test things. It's always fun to test new things. So this is our save data, and in the save data I'm going to change the element of our Eksauria. So we have the Scarlet. Basically we have the bag, which is the items that we have inside our bag, which means gems, gold, so on and so forth. We have Scarlet, which is the RPG elements and the Eksauria, the weapon that she has equipped. So we have the durability, which does nothing right now. The element is nothing, heavy, level, MP, quick, special. Okay. So our Eksauria, the element is nothing. Ellen, right? No, it's not Ellen. It's Scarlet. God damn it. It's Scarlet. So the elements, I'm going to, let's just test a fun thing. So we are fighting against an imp. Imp, it's fire. So the weaker element against fire, it's earth. Is the earth element. So let's just set our Eksauria to the earth element. I'm going to save this file. Now we should be weaker, and if I perform an attack, please okay. But if I set this to be ice, don't move the UI, please. I shall lock the canvas. Please lock the canvas. I can't. Unlock selected. Hey! Don't be a naughty boy. Please lock my canvas. I can't. Okay. So I just need to be careful with this. Lock. There you go. Now the canvas is not gonna do fun stuff. Okay, but if I have a stronger element, stronger, okay. If I have a stronger element, I should be able to do a parry, but I am. Congratulations, you played yourself! The feature is implemented and it's working for some reason. Okay. Now, I need to understand the code that I have made before. The feature is working. It's returning strong and weak. Or it's returning 1. It's returning strong, weak, or 1. The element checker is returning strong, weak, or 1. Strong, weak, or 1. And this is used to send strong, weak, or 1 inside the damage when I call damage on the enemy or the player. Where I'm calling the damage on the player, it's on top in here somewhere. There you go, on our player. So we have the element checker, and I send the enemy's element, and I compare it to the player's element. And this is done when I apply damage to the player or when I apply damage to the enemy. Yeah. So damage element checker, yes. And in the element checker, I send a return or strong or weak. And our enemy was fire. So if the player was ice and the enemy was fire, he should have returned strong. Okay. This is taking the damage, the element modifier, which returns the strong or weak, and the damage multiplies by strong or weak. This is the value. This is different. This is the value. I don't want the value. I want this in here and this in here. I don't want the value. So we still have a bug. We still have a problem because we are trying to multiply values, and those values are will give us problems. But let's just focus on the task itself. I'm just gonna just take note. Damage multiplying by, so damage multiplying by string value. This is a fix that I have to make. This on the enemy and the player itself. So enemy and player. So the element is doing in here. So damage, I have the damage, yes. I have the element, yes, and I have the parry counter. And the parry counter, yes, the damage in here, yes. This modifier is checking if it's less than 1, and if it's less than 1, the parry is enabled. Okay. If the element modifier is less than 1, it's less than 1, it's comparing strings to integers. This is doing nothing in here. So go on the top, this variable that I have created is doing nothing. So damage, I have the element modifier. If element modifier is less than 1, this element modifier is receiving the damage, and in the damage this is what activates the parry, and this is going to activate the variable parry, which includes the ability to do parry in here. There you go. So let's just think back. The element checker, it's returning a string. So the strong, it's checking the strong, we will be equals to, oh, my mind is just exploded. Now I'm starting to understand this thing. Okay, now I understand. So game data. In the game data, let's just check the game data. And the game data, we have modifiers. So the strong, actually, it's not a string. It's actually a value. And the value, it's being get on the game data, which does the balancing thing for our game. And in the game data, we have the element and the modifier for the strong element. And the modifier for the strong element, let's just element strong. So in the game data, we have the element strong. So element strong, and the modifier for the element strong is to give a 50% boost on the damage. Yes, that's why when we call this element checker, it will return the strong, and the strong it's not a string, it is the 1.5, and that means it's going to be bigger than 1, which is making us able to do the parry. If it's neutral, it will give us 1, which is going to enable the parry, because it's 1, it's the same as 1 and not lower, enables parry, and we can do parries on stronger and neutral elements. But if we do the element checker, and the element checker is weak, which means it will return weak, the weak value is going to be 0.5. It's going to be half the damage. It's going to multiply the damage by half. As you can see in here, it's on the enemy, not in here. So in here it's going to be 0.5, which means it's going to be lower than this, lower than 1. And by being lower than 1, or the stamina points is going to be lower, it's going to make the parry equals to true. And because the parry is true, in the parry checker, because it's not true, it's going to give false. It's not going to let us perform the parry function. And my mind just exploded by the genius programming that I have done before and I have forgot. That's why we should comment our code, always. Don't do as I do, do as I say. Lesson learned. So let's just comment in the code itself. In the code itself. So in here, strong modifier. Weak modifier. And I'll give it an example of 1.5. 0.5. There you go. Yes, this is for future me. There you go. And now it all makes sense. And that's why the feature is working. Yes. Job done. And the OST is just over. And yeah. I'm streaming for, let's just see for how long I have been streaming. For more than 1 hour and 20. It's 1 hour and 17. It's been 1 hour and 17. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So, checking again. We have on the save data, our Eksauria is set to have an ice element. An ice element means it's stronger than fire. So it's a stronger element. Let's just attack just one enemy. I can parry. Yes. Not so fast. So let's just set this to be a fire element, which fire against fire will return 1, mean neutral. And neutral. Yes, I can still parry. But if I set the element to be earth element, now we can't even parry. And there you go. The feature is working. Now, what I have in my documentation. It's time to see the documentation. The docs. So let's just open the documents, the GDD of our game. There you go. Let's just try to be fast in here so you are not going to be spoiled. There you go. Let's just open this on the left side of my monitor so I can see shut or at the same time. Parry feature. Parry feature. Parry feature. The parry feature is not on the index, but there is the mechanics. Combat mechanics. Let's go to the combat mechanics. And combat mechanics talks about the parry. Where is you? Parry. So the parry feature. The parry efficiency depends on the elements of our equipped sword. If the element is inferior, the parry will fail and the player will get damage. So it doesn't even let us to do the parry. So okay, if the parry is indifferent, it's neutral, it will work. If the parry is stronger, it will stun the enemy. So now it's time to implement the stun feature on our enemy. There we go. There we go. I'm going to play again the Momodora 3 OST. There we go. And the volume is too high. So let's just leave this in 30 dB or a slight less volume. The Doge wanted to participate. Yes. Say hello to a Doge that I have in here. Not in my house, it's outside. It's on the sun, having fun. Yes. It's a German Shepherd, for those curious of the dog. It's a huge dog, though. So, parry system. Parry. If we perform a parry, the enemy should become stunned. It's kinda annoying to set the volume of the music. There you go. Okay. So, AI controller, it's time for us to set this enemy to be stunned, which is the stun thing. So, how we are going to implement the stun? We have the HP of the enemy, we have the speed, quick, heavy, quick percentage. This is things. Can move in combat as player. This is the AI. This is as player is for the outside of the combat system to follow the player, and the target is the player, or can be the path, the AI path to patrol an area. Not implemented though, it's going to be implemented in the future. His turn, end of turn. Okay, if this is his turn, now I'm going to set a var, and this var will be called stun effect. This stun effect will have a value of 0. Now, this value is going to be the counter of turns our enemy is going to be stunned. Okay, this is an effect modifier, and this will be set if it's bigger than 0, which means it's going to have turns to apply this effect. And we are going now to program the effect. So, stun effect. I have already import an effect to apply, which is this icon. So now I'm going to see the enemy scene. Do I have a default scene for enemies? Or I just have the... Let's just go to the prefabs. Prefabs, I have door, a door prefab, a gnome, hound, imp, interactor, inventory, key, torch, white. So, I don't have a scene for enemies, which means that I'm going to have to implement in every single enemy this thing. You sure come from Unity. Yeah. It's where I have learned how to make games. It was on Unity. This is where it all started. Actually, it all started making board games when I was like 10, 11 years old. And then the first game engine that I have tried was RPG Maker, because in 2010 you search how to make games, it was what appears. It was RPG Maker, and then it also appears some videos on Unity and Unreal, some CryEngine, but those you need to know how to program, and I wasn't a programmer at the time. I have learned how to program later, like in 2012, when I start learning how to program. Actually, it was 2014. Yes, it was in 2014 when I start the basics of programming. Unity and Unreal demand some programming knowledge. Yeah. If you want to program a game and you don't have programming skills, I highly recommend easier engines. Actually, I can do something. Let's recommendations: Construct 3, Game Maker, RPG Maker somewhat, another visual scripting engines. That's what I recommend. If you want to learn how to program and how to make serious games, how to properly make games, you can use then Unity. It's a great starting point. And Godot even better, because the programming language of Godot is really similar to Python, and Python is a great language to start learning how to program. And then just upgrade and learn some C# to know how to program in Unity. You can learn also visual programming in blueprints on Unreal, and go on from there. From the Unity they can play with Scratch. Yes, Scratch, it's awesome. Scratch is a great platform for beginners. I forgot about that because I haven't tried Scratch before. Maybe I do in the future, in a stream, not in here though. In another platform. I believe UGS should be for UGS games, or maybe make a UGS game on Scratch. Who knows? The future shall tell. Yes, but the visual scripting in Godot is very recent, and it's a bit underdeveloped. That's why I haven't even touched that. And we can talk about the Unity visual scripting too. It was very recent. They acquired a company that I have forgot the name, a company that have made the plugin of visual scripting for Unity. But yeah, comparing to Unreal, every other game engine that has visual scripting, apart from the visual scripting specific engines, yeah, usually they are underdeveloped. But let's get back to our game. Stop being off topic. So, stun effects on our enemy. So, the combat controller. If our enemy, maybe we should not be on the widget, we should be on the AI controller. So, on the AI controller, if stun effect is 0, so it's not stun. If it's not stun, let's just go to the checkers physics process. In the physics process, and let's just go to the. This is to check if it's if it's not the player's turn, and if it's not the player's turn, it's going to check if it's the end of the enemy's turn. And if it's not the enemy's turn, so enemy turn, enemy size, enemy turn, yes, and then it starts performing the haste. Enemy turn 0, action 1, okay. Now, else. Now it's the time that we check if the enemy is attacking or not. So, if the enemy is in stun state, which means that there is a value above 0 on the stun, which means it's not gonna perform the damage in our player. So this is checking if the enemy turn, if it's not the enemy turn, or this turn is false, and enemy turn can move. So the enemies can't move, and the enemy is not on the end of his turn, and the enemy has some HP, then it's going to perform the attack with all the modifiers in here. So we pass the parry timing, which is the frames that the player can perform the parry. We pass the element checker to see if the enemy has a stronger or weaker element, and then we pass the damage, which is the attack of our enemy, which is going to set the attack function to randomly set the probability of an attack. Let's just see the function. So the attack is checking the percentage of performing a quick or heavy attack. Those percentages are set in here, which in turn on the ready function is going on our enemy JSON, so we have a chance to perform a quick or heavy attack, and by adjusting those settings it will perform a quick or heavy attack, and if it's perform a quick or heavy attack, then it returns the quick damage or the heavy damage. I can modify this later. I will have to because of special attacks, but we'll get there when we get there. So we have the attack, and then we perform the damage on our player. Now it comes the fun part. The enemy will only do this if the enemy doesn't have, it's not stun. So I need to check all of this. This if condition is huge. Maybe I should in the future optimize this. But for now, let's apply another condition. Yay! So, and the enemy, and select this specific enemy, which is the enemy turn, and this enemy turn dot stun And how do I call the variable? Ooh, so stun effect is lower than 1, which means it's 0, and if it's 0, then we can perform the damage on our player, and by that we attack, and by doing the attack I select the attack animation. Yes. And if we are on the end of the turn of this enemy, so if we are on the end of turn, then we perform another condition in there. So let's just copy this. So if we are on the end of turn, get parent SP plus to regen the player's stamina per turn, per enemy turn. So this is specific. This in here is to check if the player SP is at max. Oh, I should do a specific function in the player for this later. Maybe on the stamina changed. Maybe I should do this if in there. Then the enemy's end of turn equals to false, which means it's going to stop the enemy's end of turn, and then enemy turn plus 1. Okay, before the end of the turn, we are going to do an if condition, and if the enemy turn, we are in the end of turn of this enemy, right? And if we are on the end of turn and the stun it's more than 0, then I'm going to decrement the values in here. This is annoying, so minus equals to 1. There you go. The minus in here, the decrement, it's not like C language. C based language, I should say. Okay. So, if the stun effect is bigger than 0, then for every turn it's going to decrement. Good. Nice. I like it. So this is working. And now, let's just check if this is working correctly, because this is going to set an attack, and I hope the attack doesn't have an emitter, so then let's just check again. So the animated sprite play quick attack and then return quick. Let's just check if there's something in here. So else if it's in combat, the frame equals to the animation, then end of turn. If this is his turn, it's turn false, end of turn. Battle sprite. Yes, there is no problem in here. Or maybe it is, maybe there is a problem in here. It can be in idle mode. Yes, it can be in idle mode because the enemy is going to have an icon of the state and not an animation itself. So it's an icon. Okay, it's good. Now if the player stuns the enemy, how the hell am I going to check if the player successfully stunned an enemy and say to that precise enemy that is going to have the parry count up? So when we damage our player, so if enemy turn is turn and enemies, this is why I should have the parry system in the combat controller, but I don't, so I will have to optimize and do this later. So right now we have get parent and damage, enemies, enemy turn, attack. This is to the enemy to attack. I don't want that. The enemy is not going to attack. Or is it though? So damage, it's going to call the attack from the enemy, which in turn it's going to call this function, which in turn it's going to play this. Play the quick attack or heavy attack. This is in the enemy's turn, so in the parent we only get the attack value, which is the quick or heavy, and we get the element checker, and we get the JSON data enemy name, and we get the parry timing, and this starts the parry process. This starts the parry process. This checks if the enemy is at the end of his turn. Ooh, I can check for something in here. So I probably can do this check in here, inside in here, to check if the enemy is at the end of his turn, and this is going to regen the stamina of our player. Yes, it's going to check the effect, the stun effect of our enemies, and now I will need to get in our parent. Yes, we are going to get in our parent with an if, and then where is the variable that we use to check if our parry is not missed? Yes, we are going to use a variable that will check if our parry is not missed. And if we press the enter in the right place, enter, this means the parry miss is going to become false, and this means we have missed the parry. This means we haven't missed the parry. And when the attack starts, so in combat, blah blah blah, so we have on the take damage, and we have enter at take damage, and the parry equals true, and if it's on true, it's going to do this, and if we enter the parry miss, yes, yes, and if it's above that and parry is missed, its parry is not missed, we can miss the parry, but if we enter that, it activates the missed parry. No, I don't want this variable. Unfortunately, I don't want this variable. I should have something that tells the player that we have successfully hit a parry, and I have this parry miss. But yet, if we enter the previously or the before, I have this parry miss in here. if the frame is above parry count 1, which means it's after we miss the window, and if we miss the window, if we have missed the window, and we have, or if we have missed and the parry is still true. Why do I have this in here in false? Let's just do this. This parry miss is now commented because I don't know why I have the parry miss in false right here. I have the take damage. What I'm doing in the take damage, I'm not messing around with the parry miss. So the parry miss is false, the parry miss is false. Ah, this means that I have pressed one time in here, right? TC fins on enter, right? Or wrong? Or wrong. So this is in combat. This is the place where I check if I press that enter. Yes, yes. And if I press enter before, if I press enter before, then if this is here and I press enter, and if I do this and press enter, if I do this and I press enter, so in here I do the miss, right? In here I do the miss. So and enter and parry. If I do enter and I haven't parry, the parry is now in true. If I do these two and instead of using the miss I do the enter and parry, I can do this. So in here the parry is now false. So the parry is true, which means it's not gonna enter in here and it's not gonna enter in here. So yes, that's right. If I press enter in here, the parry miss is false. No, but I want the parry equals to true as well in here. So the parry, it will be equals to true, and I haven't missed the parry, so the parry equals to parry. So I can enter in here. This is going to become false, false. So this is false, this is false, this is false. I can't do it like that, though. I can't do it like that. So return, return, return. Okay. This is for the case that I have missed the parry. If I enter in here, the parry will become true and not letting us enter in here. But if I didn't press in here, it will enter in here. And if we press enter, the parry miss will become false. And if our parry miss becomes false, we can't enter in here. Good. And if we can't enter in here, the parry will become false at the end of the turn. I can't make the parry miss at the end of the turn. But I will need to check this later. Okay, now the parry miss equals to false means that we have perfectly hit the parry. So in here, parry miss. If we have we haven't missed the parry, then the enemy, the actual enemy that we have correctly not missed the parry, will increment 1. So now the enemy has 1 turn in stun effect, right? But now this has caused a problem logic, because at the end of the turn the parry will go miss, but we don't want the parry to go miss at the end of this turn. We want to reset the parry to miss, not in here, but at the end of this turn, which means in here at the end of this enemy turn. So in here the parry miss equals to false, and this will be equals to false in here and not in here. Let's just stay commenting here, just in case, because I have a feeling that this is going to explode. So, come on, just one. I just want one of you. Yes, just one of you. I don't want two. Now, let's just check if I perform a stun. So, if I parry, if the enemy is going to be in stun. Oh. What's happening? What is happening? What is happening? Yes, I have the feeling that this was going to explode. I didn't expect this kind of explosion. An instant, one hit. Why is one hitting my player? Why you are doing this? Why you are doing this? Oh. Let's just do this. Or not. No. Or maybe parry equals to false, which means and parry. Because if parry isn't true, I can press this, and by pressing this the parry miss, but this parry is not gonna change. Let's see if this fixes our problem. Okay. Yes. Change the thing to ice strong element. Now perform a parry. Yes. Now the problem is now in a loop, infinite loop. I can't do nothing. Why? Because it's stop in here, probably. Why you are stuck in here? So let's just test again and see all the steps. So the UI has appeared. I can select a quick attack. It's going to attack the enemy is going to attack. I have done that, and I now can quick attack again, and the player was stuck there. So which means it's now stuck in that mode. Somewhere in here. He's stuck somewhere in here. End of turn. What triggers the end of turn? That's the problem. We have the damage and we have the end of turn. So he's not performing the attack. He's not performing the damage. And because it's not performing the damage, he's probably not ending his turn. What triggers the end of turn? So, end of turn. So the end of turn, it's triggered in here, and to get in here, so physics process, if in combat, check collision with player, if as player and can move, or in combat and can move target. Okay, this is the moving target. Now else, if it's not in combat, or is in combat but it's moving, rearranging. Now, if it's in true combat, is in frame, which going to see if it's the frames get frame count animated sprite dot animation -1 and HP is above 10, and if it's his turn it equals to false, and of turn equals to true. Okay, now I need to set an animation in here after this, probably after this. Else so to trigger the end of turn, if he is not in here, let's just make it quicker. So end of turn equals to true. There you go. Now, what's going to explode? I have an enemy. I'm going to attack the enemy. Parry. What? So I can attack. He's going to attack me. And this is all broken. No, no, no. No, no, no. So I want enemies, enemy turn, and I want to go inside him. Yes, and inside him I want to do this. So I can't select this dude and go in here and play that animation. What can I do to set the end of turning here? Limited sprite, frames, get frame count, -1 and HP equals to that. And this triggers this. If he is in combat and If he's in combat, he is in here. Or so everything in here. Or if the stun effect it's bigger than 1. If the stun effect is bigger than 1, then his turn is going to end. Right? 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 If it's not his turn, damage, and this damage, it's going to... Wait a second. Attack. Now the attack is the one that activates the turn, which means he's not going to be in his turn because he didn't attack. And because he didn't attack, he's not in his turn, and he didn't enter in that. So I can do this, and else enemy turn, so his turn, hey, his turn equals to true. Now it's probably gonna work. I have my turn, yes. I can attack, yes. I can parry, yes. It's my turn. I can attack, and I can attack, and I can attack, and he never attacked me back again. So, he's stunned forever. Let's just check with 2 guys. Parry, 1 attacks. Now, this is... I'm starting to get annoyed. Why are you doing this to me? Okay, it's logic. So if enemy is enemy turn, all of this, and enemy stun effect bigger than 1. If the enemy stun effect is bigger than 1, he's not supposed to do that. Oh, I can't have this in here. I can't have this in here. I just can't have this in here. I can't have this in here. But I need to have a way to trigger this his turn. So, to trigger it, if he is in combat and he is in this or stun effect, and if he's on stun effect, this means he's going to do this, check if he's on the end of turn. He's never on the end of turn, so this R should not be in here, it should be in here is if is end of turn or stun effect is bigger than 1. And then it triggers the is turn false, end of turn true, and if he's now on the end of turn, he can now enter in here, which is going to stun effect to -1, but if the player has entered a parry, which means it's going to do plus. Okay. So I'm going to quick attack, parry, and now quick attack again, and we are stuck. We are stuck because we didn't enter in here. Just making my spaghetti code bigger. Parry, attack him, and it's not the end of turn. Come on. Yeah, maybe I should take a break, have a fresh air, and then tackle this problem later. Anyway, we have confirmed the parry is now successfully checking for elements, which is great. What is not great, it's not the stun effect. The stun effect wasn't implemented. So I'm going to see this later on, after dinner. Not on stream though, so we only stream Wednesdays at noon. So thank you for everyone who has seen our stream today. We have quite a bit of viewers, and thank you for everyone who have watched it. Next week we haven't confirmed who's going to stream though, so probably some artist or narrative. We shall see who's going to be in the next week. Stay tuned on our socials to check that out. We are probably announcing who's going to stream next week very soon. We can also enjoy our memes. We are starting to share some pixel art on some nice memes of our community. So join us there to check that out. Thank you all to see our stream, and see you next time. Bye bye.